So your economy has collapsed. What now? Imagine this. Overnight, prices of food and fuel have tripled. ATMs have stopped working. Your national currency is practically worthless. Supermarkets are empty, gas stations are dry, and the government's official statement is filled with silence or denial. This isn't the beginning of a dystopian novel. This is a reality that millions of people across the world have lived through. From Venezuela to Lebanon, from Zimbabwe to Argentina. Economic collapse is no longer a distant nightmare. It's a real-world event with real-world consequences. But what actually happens when a country goes bankrupt, and how do people survive it? The term economic collapse is used when a nation's financial system completely fails. This often involves hyperinflation, massive unemployment, bank failures, default on sovereign debt, and an overall loss of trust in government institutions. When a country can no longer meet its debt obligations and loses access to foreign credit, the gears of the economy grind to a halt. This collapse is often triggered by years of mismanagement, overspending, political corruption, war, or external shocks like sanctions or pandemics. Let's understand what it looks like on the ground. When Lebanon's economy collapsed in 2019, the Lebanese pound lost over 90% of its value. Banks imposed informal capital controls, meaning people couldn't access their own savings. Basic medicines disappeared from pharmacies. Fuel shortages caused nationwide blackouts. The middle class rapidly slipped into poverty, and nearly 80% of the population ended up requiring food aid. Imagine working your whole life, saving every dollar you could, and suddenly, overnight, it all vanishes. What many people don't realize is that an economic collapse is not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about the destruction of daily life. You might see doctors leaving their professions because their salaries can no longer feed their families. Teachers may abandon classrooms to work as delivery drivers. Engineers may emigrate, taking their skills and hope with them. A collapsing economy bleeds human capital. It loses its future builders. One of the earliest signs of collapse is currency devaluation. As trust in the national currency erodes, people rush to convert their money into more stable alternatives, like the US dollar, gold, or even digital currencies. This triggers a vicious cycle. The government tries to print more money to meet its obligations, which only worsens inflation. Soon, the value of money itself disintegrates. In Zimbabwe during the 2000s, inflation reached a mind-bending 79.6 billion%. A loaf of bread cost billions of Zimbabwean dollars. People carried cash in wheelbarrows just to buy groceries. But if hyperinflation is one side of the coin, external debt default is the other. Argentina's crisis in 2001 was caused by decades of borrowing to fund public spending without generating enough income through exports or taxes. When creditors refused to lend more, the government froze bank accounts, leading to mass protests. The middle class became poor overnight. In 2020, Argentina defaulted again, for the 9th time in its history, proving how difficult it is for some countries to break the cycle. And then there's the case of Sri Lanka. In 2022, the nation defaulted on its foreign loans after years of borrowing from international lenders and China for infrastructure projects that didn't generate returns. Combine that with tax cuts, a failed organic farming policy, and the collapse of tourism due to COVID-19, and the result was total economic breakdown. The country ran out of fuel, schools closed, public transport was halted, the president fled the country, people stormed the presidential palace. It was not fiction, it was global news. So, how do people actually survive when their economy collapses? The answer is local adaptation and alternative systems. In countries like Greece, during its debt crisis, people created barter networks. trading services like plumbing or medical checkups for food or childcare. In Venezuela, many turn to cryptocurrency mining using government-subsidized electricity to earn Bitcoin or Ethereum, which could be converted to real value. In Lebanon, underground money exchange networks and informal fuel markets became lifelines for families. Communities become the front line of survival. Families pool resources. Diaspora networks send remittances. Neighborhood gardens replace supermarkets. People return to barter, use foreign currencies, or even go fully digital. Mobile money systems like M-Pesa in Kenya or cryptocurrency wallets in Nigeria became popular in regions with failing banks. These systems are not regulated, but they provide something collapsing governments cannot: functionality. But there's a darker side too. With economic collapse comes institutional breakdown. Police may stop enforcing the law. Corruption becomes rampant. Crime rates explode. Political unrest intensifies. Some governments use emergency powers to suppress protests, leading to human rights violations. Others simply disappear from the scene. A power vacuum can lead to civil war, regional breakaways, or foreign intervention. For example, Yugoslavia's economic collapse in the 1980s fueled ethnic tensions that eventually led to civil war and the breakup of the country. In contrast, Russia's 1998 economic crisis, though severe, was contained through quick reforms and a rise in oil prices. The outcomes vary, but one factor remains common: the people always suffer first and hardest. What about recovery? Is it even possible? Yes, but it's a long, painful, and politically risky process. Iceland, after the 2008 financial crash, took an unconventional route. It let its banks fail instead of bailing them out. It protected citizens before creditors. Though the road was rough, Iceland's economy rebounded in less than a decade. Meanwhile, Germany after World War II is another stunning example. Through the Marshall Plan, debt restructuring, and industrial focus, it went from ruin to one of the world's strongest economies in 20 years. So what are the key ingredients for rebuilding? Debt restructuring, working with creditors to reduce, delay, or eliminate debt payments. Restoration of trust in institutions, rule of law, and leadership. Currency stabilization, often through adopting a foreign currency or pegging to gold or the dollar. Investment in infrastructure and education, rebuilding from the inside out. Social safety nets, to protect the most vulnerable during recovery. Even with international help, recovery demands discipline. Economic reforms often come with harsh austerity measures, slashing public spending, raising taxes, selling national assets. These policies are controversial and can lead to further unrest. But for some countries, there is no other way. There's another modern danger: digital economic collapse. What if cyber attacks target a country's central bank? What if a nation's entire payment system is taken offline? In a world increasingly reliant on digital finance, a new form of economic collapse is emerging, not through bombs, but through bytes. So if your country's economy has collapsed, what now? The reality is harsh. People will need to adapt to alternative systems, depend more on local networks, and accept that the government may no longer offer security. But it's not the end. It's a reset, a new beginning, built from the ruins of old mistakes. And history shows that collapse isn't final. Many nations have risen again, often stronger, smarter, and more resilient than before. What matters most is leadership, public unity, international support, and the will to change. Because no matter how bad it gets, when the dust settles, the people who remain are the ones who shape what comes next. If you found this video insightful, consider subscribing for more in-depth analysis and real-world stories that matter. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Could your country survive an economic collapse? Or is it already on the edge?